an additional pipe as well, which
$300 plus million
led by Cap Research, Franklin Templeton, Wellington, several other great ones. And then we also, wanted to get public sometime in 2020, ideally, and this allowed us to do both of them in the same transaction as opposed to two separate transactions.
That was the CEO of DraftKings speaking about the company's deal to go public literally in the past hour. Joining us right now to talk about the big business of live sports and betting, Tom Rogers, executive chairman at WinView and a CNBC contributor. What's serendipity to have you on the same day that this DraftKings deal actually happens?
I have another three-way deal to talk about.
I know.
It covers similar territory, but in other ways very, very different.
So I want to get to your deal in 1 second, but I just want to get your thoughts now that you've heard that this deal is out in public.
Well, it's been rumored for a while, so I'm not surprised by it.
Surprised it was done as a SPAC?
Well, that had been rumored for a while, too. Jeff Sagansky's been involved with all that for some time. Really interesting to see sports gambling gaining the amount of traction that it is. And we have a couple of themes that relate to that in terms of our deal. One, we have a massive patent portfolio covering mobile sports betting and mobile sports gambling. CNBC had an article out, as Jason referred to today, with about 20 states that have legalized gambling. Only about 7 or 8 of those are active with mobile sports. That's where most of DraftKings and FanDuel's growth is coming from.
And do they have to pay you for patents?
Well, we haven't talked about specific companies and our licensing program, but we are quite confident with all the people that have looked at our patents that we have a major role to play in terms of mobile sports gambling.
But what is the patent piece that's the most valuable?
Well, what's fascinating about our patent portfolio is it goes to the heart of people watching at home and betting, mobile sports gambling. And imagine you're watching via satellite, I'm watching via cable, Becky's watching via streaming. We all have different times, different latencies that the picture of what's going on the football field arrives at our television set.
Right.
And to have a game of integrity, you need to synchronize everybody with their picture in the right time sequence. And then
really
lock everybody out simultaneously.
That's
or people
really
can cheat the system.
I've never thought
And
that.
we have key patents that go to the heart of making sure sports gambling via mobile or sports gaming, or what I'm going to talk about in a minute, esports gaming, is all done with the kind of integrity you need.
Who pays you for that? Is it the DraftKings company? Is it the league? Because if I were the league, I'd want to make sure nobody was gaming it.
Well, we have these patents that we have been lining up our licensing program, and
but here's the part I don't understand. Let's say I'm watching it at home on a Spectrum Cable, or Comcast, parent company of this network, and somebody else is, as you said, watching it on streaming on this and watching somewhere else. How could you, if I can see it, how could you lock that? I understand if we were all on the same device. I get that. But if I could get the information else, or by the way, if I'm live in the actual stadium.
That is the key to it. You have to be able to know when, in a way that you are uniformly locking out how much time people have to enter relative to when they've seen something, so people can't get that information first, then make the bet. So you're locking out people simultaneously. It's critically important to the whole industry.
You know what this is? I lived this for 6 years. This is
trading.
High-frequency trading.
Exactly.
But by the way, in your world, people could pay to get a little faster stream.
Just like in this world, you can show up at the game. You want to be as close to the action as possible. In the old days,
but are you going to lock people who are in the stadium out?
The same thing.
You deal with this in terms of people who are in the live stadium being able to measure sequences and knowing your delay relative to the fastest and slowest delivery systems that you're dealing with.
You know, what's interesting is the Fed is worried about this in terms of speeches, and there's a big issue now with the Bank of England, where this one service was paying to get people information like seconds before it was released.
Because anytime there's money on the line, people are going to look to game the system.
But let me tell you how what we're doing, while it covers sports gambling.
You're really doing with esports.
We're dealing with sports gaming of a different sort, including esports. What WinView does is does this as predictive gaming, game of skill. Games of skill, as Jason's other business, fantasy sports, which is legal in about 85% of the country. Predictive games of skill are largely legal as well, where you're not betting on a single proposition, how many yards is the next play going to involve, but you are getting 20 or 25 questions in a social context where you're playing against friends and family, or you're playing against 20 people in an anonymous room, and people are playing for a pot of money based on paid entry. They may enter a room that costs them $2 to enter, maybe $100 to enter. That, we believe, is going to go way beyond the hardcore gambler into much more social viewing. You got 200 million sports viewers in this country. And a small portion of them will be gamblers.
Are you running a consumer product or the enterprise sort of piece of it behind the scenes?
We are both. It's both the technology that drives it as well as the direct-to-consumer engagement that makes all that happen. But we are putting 3 companies together also. As you mentioned, one of them is Torque Esports, to bring this competitive platform to esports. Another is Frankly in news, to create the flip side answer to all the streaming we've talked about. Entertainment programming is going to streaming. What happens to news and sports content when the bundle declines and the sub fees that are supporting news and sports go with it? Engine, esports, and news, gaming, is about creating the revenue support for the news and sports programming that's left behind.
I want to talk to you more about that, but we got to go for now. But you're going to have to come on back. You're here all week.
I am here all week.
Okay, we're going to come find you. Thank you, Tom.
Great to see you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.